Hey fellas, and welcome to another exciting episode here at Prime Model Works headquarters. I've been in a modeling funk lately. I got Academy's 1/72 scale B29, and I started putting it together, and I got so frustrated with it. I threw it away. I was so mad, and I don't get mad at model kits too often, but I was like, oh my god, this is horrible, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. Just get in. I got into one of those funks that I'm sure a lot of you guys get into, where you just don't really feel like building anything. So what I did is I started watching videos, and I came across Night Shift. He does a lot of tank modeling, and I'm sure everybody's seen him. Everybody on my channel is probably already subscribed to him, but I've never actually watched him. And oh my god, that guy is absolutely amazing. And then I started watching Lincoln Wright's channel. He does a lot of Gundam and Ma.k kits, Maschinen Krieger. So if you don't know what Maschinen Krieger is, they're really cool sci-fi kits, and I got into them a long time ago. There's a whole cult following, and most of them are like hand painted and stuff. But I like painting them, and basically there are no rules as far as I'm concerned with Ma.k kits. So I did something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I did a video on building this guy. He's a Maschinen Krieger Super Jerry, and I tried some of the techniques out that I picked up from Night Shift and Lincoln Wright, and so I thought I'd put this together on here. And this isn't like a how-to video. I'm just showing you, just kind of letting you follow along and see how I paint one of these. And like I said, I don't think there's a right way or wrong way to do these. It's just kind of like do whatever you want. And but before I did that one, I built this one. I didn't do a video on this one, but this is a Maschinen Krieger Sea Pig. And I like these little figures. I showed at the end, kind of show you what I did with it. But I got this little box from Michael's. It's a little wooden box, and I painted it up. I thought it'd be a cool display base, so I did this little radioactive type display base. I thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, so we will, I'll quit jabbing here. This is a long video, I think like 40 some odd minutes. So, but I'm going to put these for sale on eBay if anybody's interested. If you just want to look at the finished models, I'll put a timestamp here. And for everyone else, enjoy the video. All right, let's take a look at the Super Jerry, and I've got it all built up here. I've got it primed in black, and I did what a lot of tank modelers do, and I sprayed white from the top, so it's going to highlight the upper surfaces. So I'm going to get some nice pre-shading there, and you do see a lot of tank modelers do that. I think it's kind of cool, especially with something mechanical like this. Now, the base coats, I'm going to paint a light gray, probably the front here yellow, maybe do something with this little shield on the back, like maybe a black and white or black and yellow stripes. And then maybe I might spray these front shields white. I think that looks kind of cool. So I've kind of got it lined out in my head how I'm going to do it. And a lot of Ma.k modelers will hand brush all the colors on, and you can get some really cool effects that way. It's just not something that I really enjoy doing. So I'm going to go ahead and airbrush the base coats down, and I'm not really going to cover that, just kind of explain what I'm going to do because it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to mix my paint really thin so I don't cover up all my pre-shading. And then once I get my base colors down, we'll come back and I'm going to try to do some experimentation with some chipping and some weathering tips that I picked up from Night Shift's channel and Lincoln Wright, who does a lot of these Ma.k kits. Alrighty, fellas, I've got my base layers down, I've got my decals down, and then I put a clear coat over, an acrylic clear coat over to protect my decals. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing a wash, and what I'm using for this, instead of using straight black, I've got sepia, which is a dark brown that kind of turns into an orangish color as it fades. So I've got some of that oil paint on my little palette here, and then I've got some mineral spirits. And this is how I create most of my washes. I've got some ammo MIG washes, but I really like just using the oil paints and mineral spirits. I can get my own colors, and I just like the way that this kind of works out. So I'm just going to get some mineral spirits in my palette here. Get some sepia, and then I can mix this as thick or as thin as I want. And I'm just going to go around, and I'm just going to start hitting some of these areas with the oil wash. Just like so. Now you could do a sludge wash, but there are so many little things that stick out that can break off. Rather than do just an entire sludge wash on the whole thing, I'm doing more or less a pin wash or a focused wash. I'm not just smearing it all over the whole thing. Okay. Just like so. And especially around all these little nuts and bolts. And then what I'll do, once this dries, I'll let it completely dry. Then I'll come in with a Q-tip and maybe even a brush with a little bit of mineral spirits. And I'll wipe away what I don't want. And we may come back and show you how I do that. I mean, if you've been modeling for any length of time, you probably know how to do this, but I just thought I'd cover it. And one of the interesting things is this is typically one of the last things I do. But after watching a couple videos from Lincoln Wright and Night Shift, I'm going to go ahead and do this and then do my chipping after I do my wash. And see how this works out. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on doing the oil wash. And then again, like I said, once this dries, I'll come back and I'll remove what I don't want. And then we'll cover it with a flat coat. And then we'll get on with the chipping. And then probably some more oil work. Now, one thing that I've noticed right here is my panel line isn't real deep. So what I can do, even though I've already got this painted, I'm going to come along with a razor saw and I'm just going to clean out this panel line just a bit. Just so I can sharpen that panel line. And again, obviously this is painted. But it's going to be okay if I do it this way. I don't normally like to do this. And just the way this kit went together, I had to fill in some of this, otherwise it was going to look awkward. So I may come back and touch up this area right here where I had to fill in with some putty right along there. So the panel line's not real distinct. So I may have to come in there and do some real fine oil work to make sure that my panel lines connect, especially right there at that hatch. All right, so I'm gonna go on with this and I'll see you in a bit. All right, so it's been drying for about a couple hours, I would say. And all I've got is some dry Q-tips here. I'm not dipping them in any mineral spirits. And I'm just gonna go along and I'm just gonna start wiping away some of that excess. Now, I'm not really concerned about being real neat with it because it is gonna be nice and grimy, and I am gonna do some more oil work on it. So the grimier, the better. So I'm not real concerned about getting all of it. I just want to kind of clean it up to make sure so it doesn't look like it was just slapped on here. Just kind of dirty up the panel lines and the little crevices. Just like that. It doesn't take much. And if this was a flat coat, I would probably have to come in here with Q-tips dipped in mineral spirits and play with it a little bit more, just because it'll stain the flat coat a lot more than it will the the gloss coat. Just like that. I got some fingerprints over here. Go ahead and wipe those off. And for something like this, since I am leaving a little bit extra oil paint on here, I'm gonna try to wipe it in a downward motion to go with gravity. So it'll give some of that staining. Now I am gonna do, like I said, do a little bit more oil work on it later on. And I'll be able to add some streaks, but we'll also be able to add some little bit of streaking, not much, but a little bit, doing it this way as well, like that. Okay, now I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. Now, I've got this one done, and this one I'm getting ready to wipe away some of the excess. It's really tricky when you get into all these little crevices and parts like this. You just kind of got to get in there as best you can. And like I said, since this is going to be grimy and dirty anyway, it doesn't have to be too neat. I can leave a lot more than what I typically would if I just wanted to highlight a panel line or two. I'm going to get on with wiping this off. I'll put a flat coat on it, and then we'll come back and we'll try some chipping. Okay, fellas, now I'm going to get to doing this chipping technique that Night Shift did. And if you really want to see how it's done, watch his channel. But I just want to try it out, and I figured it'd be fun to watch me do this. Now, typically what I would do whenever I did chipping, especially like rusty chipping, is I would use these Ma.k colors, and I would use a sponge and chip that way. Or I would do the hairspray technique with a dark color underneath, and then I would chip it that way. But after watching one of his videos on how he does his chipping, I was really intrigued and thought it'd be really cool. So I've already went ahead and tried it, and this is what I came up with. And I think it looks really cool. And the idea is he used a slightly lighter color than his paint color. So I'm using this pale blue-gray. And then a dark gray for the inside chipping, like you see here. And what this is going to require, or what I've been using, is I just take a piece of sponge and I tear off a piece. Okay, well, this is going to start my chipping. And then I'll use my little tweezers here. Just like so. Okay, now that's going to be my first chipping dealio. And I've got a wet palette here because I like to use, when I hand brush, Vallejo model colors. Now these are Model Air. I've got some regular model color. It's pretty much the same thing, but these are thinned down for your airbrush. But I like to use these to paint, and they're water-based acrylics. So what I went ahead and bought off Amazon for like 13 bucks is this wet palette. And all it is this little container, and it's got a piece of foam in here that you wet down with water. And this is going to keep my paint from drying out as quickly. And then you've got these little sheets that come with it, and you just put the sheet on here. And this keeps your water-based acrylics. I wouldn't think it would work with anything else. But with water-based acrylics, this really seems to help, and it keeps my paint nice and moist. Keeps it from drying out on the palette, so I don't waste as much. It doesn't get all goopy on me. So I'm going to take some of this pale blue-gray, and then I'll grab my sponge here, and I'll dip it in here, and I'll get most of it off. Okay. And then I'll come along where I want to do my chipping, and I'm just going to start chipping, putting the sponge down there. Okay. Just like so. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I've got these really tiny brushes. Look how tiny that is. Oh, that's going to be good for chipping. And I will take my paint and I'll come along here and I'm going to start connecting some of these dots. And maybe I'll add a little bit more. And I've never really been good at hand painting chips because they always look like they're hand painted. So this is definitely an art form, and it's one of those things that obviously the more you do, the better you're going to get at it. But I'm just coming along here. I'm going to go along the edge, and I'm just going to start connecting some of these. And having a really tiny, itsy bitsy little brush is key. And now I do have a flat coat on the on this piece, so I'm painting over a Tamiya clear flat. So if I do make a mistake, I can use some of my Vallejo thinner. Where is it? Just a little bit of this on a Q-tip, and I can wipe it away. As long as I'm not like staying on there too long, I can wipe away this Vallejo model color before I actually get down to the paint color. It takes a little bit longer to remove the Tamiya acrylic paint than it does the Vallejo model color. So if I do make a mistake, I can wipe it away as long as I don't stay on it too much. Just for demonstration purposes. Okay. So there, I've got my chips in the light gray, and I'll probably come back and add a little bit more, but this does take a long time to do because obviously I'm not good at it yet. But this is one of those things that, you know, the more I practice, I think the better it's going to get and the more I'm going to like it. So now I'm going to take my dark color. This does dry pretty quickly. And I'll take my dark color. And I use my tiny little brush, and I'm going to come along and I'm going to start filling in some of that light area. And I'm going to go right up to the edge here. And then I'm just going to start trying to like color in where I had the light chipping, leaving some of that like light stuff exposed. And I found that the smaller you can get your chips, it adds to the realism. So you can never have too small of a chip. So I'm just going to come in here and fill in this bottom. And it's satisfying once you start doing this and you see the chipping start to come out and come alive. It is pretty satisfying. Especially when you add some of these like smaller chips, just barely touching it. And I'm holding my breath while I do this. You ever notice that while you're doing something like somewhat precise and kind of hold your breath? Now, he goes over this. After he's done, he uses like an enamel or oil wash and like a rust color. And I'm going to try that. I haven't had much luck doing it that way. I just can't get the same result that he did, but we'll try it and see if we can try to duplicate what he does. Okay. Now this is going to be I should play some music during this part. I'm afraid to talk because it's going to mess me up. Now, once this dries, what I'll do is I'll probably throw a flat coat on it before I try to do the rust-colored oil paint on it. I'll throw a flat coat on there just in case, because this Vallejo paint, now technically the enamel or the mineral spirits shouldn't harm it, but this Vallejo paint I found is somewhat fragile. So if I do any wiping, I really want a protective coat over it. Okay. So there we go. There's what it looks like. And I think that looks really cool. I mean, that's a really neat way to do chips. I think it looks pretty realistic. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm going to get to doing the rest of this stuff. I've already done the upper part. Now I'm kind of going with the idea of less is more. So I'm not like totally just chipping the whole damn thing. I've got a few chips up here along this edge and along some of the edges on the shields here, a little bit along the back, and right there. I think those turned out really good. And then along this back piece here. Now, I should have done something. I should have like weathered this a little bit more before I did this, but I'll try to do something with it to make it look all faded and stuff with oil paint. But there we go. I also did some along the nose, which I thought turned out really good. So I'm going to get on with doing this, and then I'll get it flat coated, and we'll come back and we'll try the oil paint stuff too. Alrighty, fellas. So I went ahead after I got all my chipping done, and I put a flat coat on it. And for my favorite flat coat before I do oil work is Tamiya XF86 Flat Clear. And I sprayed that on. It dries really quickly. And now I'm going to do some oil work. So you can see I got some oil paints out here. I've been kind of experimenting. Now I've got this Abteilung Light Rust, and I really don't like the look of it on here. So I went ahead and used Flesh Shadow, which is just a little bit darker than the Light Rust. So I've got some on my palette. I've got some mineral spirits, and I went ahead and I've done one of them. You can see there I've added some of that. Basically, what I'm doing with the oil paint is I'm just applying a filter over top of my chipping. And then I've done this one. You can see that. I think it looks pretty good. And I'll show you how I do this. So I've got a couple different brushes here, and I'm going to use this one to apply the oil paint. And I'm basically just going to make a wash out of it. So I'll put a little bit of mineral spirits in here, and then add some of my Flesh Shadow or Light Rust, whatever you want to choose to use. I'm going to come along, and I'm going to just liberally put this where I put my chipping. And it's okay if it bleeds over. It's going to give it more of that rusty effect. So everywhere I have chipping, I'm just going to apply some of this. A little too much on there, but that's okay. Because we're going to take some of this away, and we're going to kind of fade it out with our other brush there. Just like so. Now, I may be doing this wrong. So, again, there are other videos out here better than this, but I'm just trying it out, showing you that a normal person, a non-professional, can do this and what kind of results I can get. And again, this is going to be one of those things, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And it's always fun to try new stuff. And, you're never going to improve unless you stretch yourself and try something new. And I always like to try new stuff. Otherwise, this hobby gets boring if I just do the same old crap all the time. Okay, we're going to do this. I went a little heavy on the chipping on this little shield here. Not sure if I like it or not, but you know what? I didn't. I could have chipped like the whole darn thing, but again, I just kind of wanted to experiment without having to like totally just demolish and super weather the model. I've never been one on super weathering a model. A lot of guys make. In fact, I got an email the other day when I was conversing with a guy via email, and I kind of explained. A lot of times I just quit weathering just because when it gets to this point of the model, I'm pretty much want to move on to something else. So I don't typically weather that much. But on one of these Ma.k kits, it's kind of nice to just kind of experiment and weather, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Unlike a lot of aircraft, you build an aircraft and you don't want to paint a F4U Corsair a bright green color because that's not the way they were. But with these Ma.k kits, you can pretty much do what you want, and that's one of the reasons I like them. Now I'm gonna let this dry a bit. So I got something that kind of looks like that. Okay. Let me hit this with a hairdryer and I'll be right back. All right. So now that this is somewhat dry, I'm going to take my other brush and I'm going to make sure that it's clean. Dip it in the mineral spirits. And I'm going to get it slightly damp with the mineral spirits, but not like soaking wet. And I'm just going to come in and start pushing some of this extra back and taking away some of that oil paint that's kind of bled over, leaving a little bit. So I'm just going to try to manipulate that color. Get in there and fade it out. Because there's kind of a hard edge where that oil paint wash leaves the way I put it on. And maybe there's a better way to do this. I don't know. So I'm just cleaning off my brush, dipping it in the mineral spirits, and then fading that oil paint just a little bit. And with this flat coat on here, it gives the oil paint a little more, gives it something to stick to a little better than if I use like a gloss. Because if I use a gloss, it would just totally wipe it away. But I can blend it a little better with a flat coat than what I can with a gloss coat. And again, I'm holding my breath. It's the way I like to do it. Might be able to see a little better up here on this one. So I just got my oil, my mineral spirits. And because this is an acrylic base coat, acrylic clear coat, the mineral spirits aren't going to affect it. Because I still get a lot of questions on will it harm the paint? No, it won't. So I'm just going to kind of wiggle my brush and start blending that in just a little bit. And it's not quite as good as what Night Shift does, but I get the idea. And I think with some more practice, this is a pretty good method to do this. Really gives you some cool looking chipping and rust effects. Now, once I get all this done, what I'll do is I'll put another flat coat of Tamiya flat clear on here, and then I can come back and I can do some streaking, and I'll probably do some rust streaking to mimic what like some rust stains coming down. But I don't want to do that yet because I don't really want to mess all this stuff up. I could probably get away with it by like taking this and coming down and doing a rust streak like that. But I'm going to go ahead and get this situated, and then I'll flat coat. I'll save my work by putting a flat coat on there, and then I'll come back and do some other stuff. I think that's probably the best option. But that's what it looks like. I think it looks pretty cool. Okay, so I've got a flat coat protecting the rust that I put on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to vary up the color with some dot filtering. And how I'm doing this is I've got a couple different colors. I've got white, a tan, a yellow, and a blue, and some mineral spirits over here. So I'm just going to take some regular mineral spirits and I'm going to wet the surface. And with this flat coat, you can see how it kind of soaks up the mineral spirits. I'm going to take some blues and hit a few spots just like that. And I'll take some white, run some white in some different areas. Okay, and then I will take another brush with some tan. And this is just going to give me some different tones. So now I've got a completely dry brush, and this is out of my weathering brushes. You can see the tip is all mashed. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to blend out these colors and fade them out. And that's going to give me some variation so it's not just one color. So when you look at something that's weathered like this, you're going to see slight variations in the color. Different tones. Make it just a little more interesting, and that's all there is to it. Now it's going to look pretty subtle, but on the finished piece, it's really gonna make a difference. So I'm just going to do this over the whole thing, and then I will again save my work with another flat coat, and then I'll come in here and do some streaking. And then I will probably use some pigments on the bottom to kind of dirty that up. I may not cover that. I think I've covered that before. I've already put some pigments in here in the back on the engine area, and used some pigment fixer and just kind of dirtied and grind that up. Once I flat coat everything, probably the last thing I'll do is I've got some oil stains and fuel stains that remain glossy. I'll probably put that in some areas to make it look like some grease or something has pooled up in different areas. So yeah, that's where we're at. Just gonna apply the oil filter, and we should be getting close to having this thing done. Let's take a look at the finished model, fellas. We'll start with this Sea Pig. Now, obviously, I didn't do any videos on this one. I did this one about 2 weeks ago. I finished it up last week, and I really like these Ma.k little figures. They got movable parts. They've got poly caps that the arms fit into and the legs and stuff like that. Just really cool. But this one, I tried the chipping technique on first. Let's take a look at that. And I thought it turned out pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but for my first try, I didn't think it was too bad. And on this one, I wanted kind of a clean look, like a spacey look. And so I think I achieved that. Just a really neat little figure. And another thing, I wanted to paint a face. I hadn't done a figure in a while, so I don't know the camera will pick that up. I mean, it's not my worst face ever, but with faces, what I typically do is I'll put a base coat of like Vallejo, like a dark skin color, and then I'll come back and with some oil paints, and I'll do all my shading and darkening with the oil paints, and that works out best for me. So, but anyway, there's that. Oh, the box. He's stuck on here with magnets. I've got magnets on here, so he doesn't like fall off. He will fall off if you like do this, but for like moving it around and stuff, it just makes sure that he doesn't fall off and like break into pieces. So, oh, and another thing on here I thought was really cool. I use those, I've shown them before on my videos, nail foil for like your fingernails. I put that on there and it's got like this iridescent look to it. I thought that was kind of cool. All right, well, let's move on to, let's get this guy out of the way. Let's move on to the Super Jerry. And the only things that I really added off camera was I added some streaking in various spots, and I kind of made some like rust streaking. You can see right there. And then along the back. So I just kind of did some streaking. I did some rust streaks along the like up here on the shields, and then I added some pigments. And I don't work with pigments a lot, but what I want to do is tie it into this little diorama type base that I built. So I took some dark earth pigments that I used on the base here, and I just basically threw some pigments down and put them in some crevices, and then sprayed that with pigment fixer, and just to tie it in a little bit more. Now I probably could have came in here and really went hog wild with it, but you know, I think it turned out okay. I did make the sign myself with a plastic card and a little styrene tube. So I thought that was kind of cool. What I did to bend the sign, I just put it over a flame and let it melt a little bit, and then bent it, and then I got that little look. And I also used that chipping technique on here as well. So there we go, fellas. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's probably the best one that I've done yet. And this one will be for sale on eBay. So as well as the Sea Pig there, I'm putting that one up for sale. Not sure how much interest it'll draw, but I don't know. It's not going to do me any good sitting on my shelf. So I'll put it up there and somebody can purchase one of these if they would like. So I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.